Hi, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in June, and they were good ones. I'm very excited to share these with you. So if you are new to my channel, I've created this channel as a homeschooling resource to give you different curriculum ideas, organizational ideas, and ways to invite Christ into your homeschool space. So if you're interested in those things, please hit that subscribe button and let's talk about some books. Okay, so in June, I read 2 books. Normally I get through more than 2, but reading's been a little bit of a struggle for me the last few months. But these ones were really, really good. I have reviews of both of them, and I will make sure those are linked down below in my blog post if you want to check them out. It has some similar things that I'm going to be talking to you about, but it'll also have some different things and even like more quotes that I just really loved. So let's get in the first book. Okay, so the first book that I read this month was Where There's Hope by Elizabeth Smart, and I really, really enjoyed this book. I recently read the Elizabeth Smart My Story book. This was a few months ago, I think. I'll link the video and the review down below. And I really, really love this book. This outlines her story of being taken. Again, I feel weird saying I love this book. That just seems weird. But it was a really, really inspiring story. That's probably a better way to put it. And something that, yeah, it just inspired me. And I really wanted to read more that she had written, which is why I got this book. And this book, she shares tidbits of her story of being taken, but she doesn't share the whole thing. So if you want the whole story, this is what I would read. And it's not for the lighthearted, it's fairly intense, so just a warning. But in here, she shares some of the stories, but then she talks about a whole bunch of people that have had difficulties as well, that have had trials, which, you know, we all do. And then how they've gotten through them. So that's why it's called Where There's Hope. How they found hope in these difficult circumstances. So she interviews a lot of people. She interviewed like Anne Romney. She interviewed people that weren't of her faith, which is also my faith, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so she interviewed a variety of people from all walks of life, from different religions that have been through different circumstances, had different hardships, and asked them ways that they got through those situations. And it was just really good, really inspiring. I loved it so much. And I don't want to ruin the story for you if you go check it out, because it was just really that good. And it's a very easy read, pretty quick. And there are some intense, more delicate stories in here as well that are coming from these people that she interviews. And so just keep that in mind. If you're very easily sensitive to those things, then it might be a little bit difficult that way. But I wanted to share just a few quotes. One of the ones that I loved the most was actually at the very beginning, and it was from Anne Romney, and it said, well, Anne Romney was talking to her, and so then Elizabeth Smart realized this. So it wasn't a direct quote, I don't think, from Anne Romney, but it says, "For the first time, it occurs to me that sometimes the lost loved one is yourself." And this really hit home to me. I feel like so many times it's easy to look external and see other people and be like, oh, I haven't lost what they've lost, and I haven't lost what they've lost. You know, they've lost a loved one, they lost a child, or maybe something else. Maybe they lost their job. I'm not really sure. But it's easy to see those external things. But sometimes the biggest thing that we lose is some part of ourself. You know, as we go through these trials, it's not always something externally, it's internal. And I feel like that's how I feel a lot of the things in my life has been, which is why I just loved that statement, because I could never quite put it into words how I felt about my situations. And I think that's it. Sometimes the one you're losing is yourself, or at least a part of yourself. And that's really hard as well. Even if you haven't lost someone externally, losing part of yourself internally brings that grief. It brings a lot of hard things that maybe people don't recognize as much. And so I just thought that's important. It's important to realize that even if you can't see the external struggles and loss, there could be internal things going on that are really hard for people. And so I love that quote. And then she talks about forgiveness in one of her chapters and has a very moving story about forgiveness. Absolutely amazing. And she says, to forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that prisoner was you. And I just think that was amazing, and talks about how forgiveness is more, it's one-sided. You know, we look at it like, oh, you have to forgive and then I'll forgive, but really so much will just be relieved from us if we learn how to forgive, even if the other person isn't going to. And so I just loved how you discovered that prisoner was you because you weren't willing to forgive. And as soon as you do, you feel set free. Even if the people on the other side aren't willing to forgive, you still are able to feel peace and calm. And it's just amazing. She explains it so much better. The way she goes about it is amazing and I really, really love it. Okay, and then this was a really, really cool quote for me. It says, there are two types of survivors, the ones who did not die and the ones who live. And just this idea of you either become the victim in the situation and allow yourself to continue to be the victim, or you become a survivor in the way that you want to live. And your life reflects that, right? You don't let your situation take over who you are and let it continue affecting her, which is something her mom tells her in this book at the very end. Like, don't let them take any more of your life. The best way you could go out and like get revenge is to live a happy, fulfilled life. And so when we go through these situations, when we all struggle because we all have trials and difficulties, making sure that we're choosing to live, not just choosing to be the ones that didn't die. And there's such a big difference in how we live our lives and how happy we are. And I just really love that. So this whole book, so inspiring. It was amazing. And I read it at a time when I really, really needed it. And it just helped me so very much. So obviously I would highly recommend it. Okay, so the second book I read this month was Atomic Habits. And we've had this book for a few years. My husband got it when it came out and I haven't read it yet. I have read it now, but I hadn't read it yet. And I really wanted to read it. I just hadn't gotten around to it, but I'm so glad I did. So good of a book. Does that make sense at all? I don't know, but I'm really excited to continue to use this book. That's the thing with so many of these books. I'm like, I need to go back and remember all the cool things and apply them, not just read them, but actually apply them. So in here, he gives 4 ways, I don't know, principles, I guess, to create better habits and to actually have them be successful in your life. And it was just really good. He shares some stories about himself and some things that have inspired him and where he got to be who he is. And so I really loved all those things. And then I loved his examples and the things that he shared. One of those things he talks about is creating a better environment for yourself. You know, if you're trying to get rid of a certain habit, you don't want to make it easily accessible. You want to make it really hard to do. So creating this very disciplined environment in your home, surrounding yourself with stuff that is going to help you achieve your goal instead of keeping it the same. That's like a huge thing, is our environment, everything we're surrounded with on a daily basis greatly affects how we're gonna act and what we're gonna do. And so if your environment is not good, then you need to change it. And so I just thought that was really cool and I really love that. And then something else in here, I have all my little notes. This is my husband's book. I took a lot of notes, but I take more notes when they're his books because I don't want to write in his books. So there's a lot of notes in here. But I really love this as well. It says, prime the environment for future use. So your environment, everything that you do on a daily basis, make sure it's ready for future use. So what does that mean, or what does that even look like? So he gives an example of someone that lived in Mississippi, and he had strategies for resetting the room after he used it. So when he finished watching television, he places the remote back on the TV stand. So this idea, like, everything has a place, and put it back in its place when you're done with it. He arranges the pillows on the couch, folds the blankets. When he leaves his car, he throws the trash away, you know, anything that might have accumulated just from that drive. So different things like that. And he says, when I walk into a room, everything is in the right place. And because I do this every day in every room, stuff always stays in good shape. People think I work hard, but I'm actually really lazy. I'm just proactively lazy. It gives you so much time back. And I just love that because I relate to this. I do this all the time too. I put stuff back, you know, and when everything has a place, it's a lot easier to put it back. So that would be the first step. is making sure you have a place to put it back in. And I just love how he said, I'm really lazy actually, I'm just proactively lazy. And I just thought that was hilarious. And so just this idea of creating this good environment and then resetting that environment so that next time you're in it, it's not like, oh my gosh, it's a mess in here already. What am I gonna do? You can just come in and it's all ready to go. It's ready for the next thing that's going on. So I really like that as well. And then another thing that stood out to me, let me see what note card we're on here. This one over here. It says, don't cling too much to one identity. And so he played baseball, he talks about that in here, and he talks about how for a long time that was his identity. And when we create habits that are around one thing, if something happens to that one thing, we are lost. We no longer know who we are, what we're doing. In one of Leonard Sack's books, I love him, I mention him a lot, I can't remember which one it is. He has 4 different ones that focus on child development, human development, parenting, all that kind of stuff. He talks about this, the importance of having teenagers not have just one thing that becomes their identity. So like if they're in dance, you know, but then maybe they'll lose their friends in dance, or they get injured and they can't do it anymore, and then they're completely lost. And as a teenager, that is a big, big struggle when they lose their identity. So making sure our habits are tied to several things and not just one thing that completely defines us, because then we lose ourselves if that one thing disappears. So we need to make sure we're tapped into a bunch of things and that those things don't just define us. And so I liked, he gives a lot of examples in here, and I love these ones. So I'm an athlete, right? I am an athlete, but this is his quote, not mine. It says, I'm an athlete because I'm the type of person who is mentally tough and loves a physical challenge. So instead of saying I'm just an athlete, or not saying just, I don't like putting I just an athlete, because that's amazing that you're an athlete. But instead of saying I'm an athlete, you're the type of person that works hard. Or I'm a great soldier is I'm a type of person who is disciplined, reliable, and great on a team. Or I'm the CEO is I'm the type of person who builds and creates things. So you see that change? You're not just, oh, I can only be a CEO, or I can only be an athlete. You're defined by more than just those things. And I just thought that was really, really cool, and I really loved that. And then a few quotes that I just really loved. I'm all about the quotes. Those are like my favorite way to share a book, is through some of the quotes. And so the first one I wanted to share that he said was, habits do not restrict freedom, but they create it. And I love that. And I see that all the time. I really see it through like sleep training, especially since, you know, I'm a mom of young kids. That's what I think about a lot. And I am kind of crazy about sleep training, and I don't do it in a mean, crazy sort of way, like letting them cry for hours on end, especially, you know, as a young, like little infant. But I just established these habits, these atomic habits and these routines that help them learn how to sleep and soothe themselves and take care of themselves. And my kids sleep super, super well, and it spilled it over into other aspects of their life because I established these habits when they were extremely small. And so just those things, and obviously it set me free. That was the point of the quote. Habits don't restrict freedom, they create it. And I have so much more freedom. I've gotten so much sleep for years because I established these habits, which wasn't always the easiest thing to do at first, but it was worth it. And then I really loved, the greatest threat to success is not failure, but boredom. And you have to fall in love with boredom. He spends some time at the end of the book talking about boredom and how the best like athletes, they learn how to be okay with being bored, and they fall in love with it because you think about their training, it's the same every single day, right? They come in and everyone's like, oh, you're so amazing. You must do like the most amazing things. And they're like, really? I just come in and lift every single day. I practice every single day. Like I do the same things every single day. So you have to fall in love with being bored and with being okay with doing the same things every single day. That's how people are successful. And I think that's hard. Everyone wants these like fast, exciting things always happening. And that's what like devices do for people and for kids, is it's all right there, super fast in your face. And it's hard to be okay with being bored and to love being bored. And that's where your success is found, is from learning to love being bored. And I just really love that. So I love this book. It was so good. I'm excited to keep going through it, to keep being inspired by it, and to apply it into my life. And yeah, it was just amazing. I would really recommend reading it if you haven't already. Okay, so those were the 2 books I read in June. As you can see, I loved them. They were amazing, they were inspiring, they helped me so much, and they are gonna continue to help me as I continue to go back and review them and learn from them. So if you have book recommendations for me, please put them below, because I love hearing all your recommendations. Give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you next time.